anyway, speaking of hard taskmasters, Melbourne Storm, I think you've got to say they finished third here, and you've got to say that they overperformed this year, in my humble opinion. But tell us what stats said, and from the glance I had, and I'm sure you can tell me, that they were middle of the road for a lot of it.
Yeah, 116, lost 8, is exactly the same as the Warriors. For and against was a little bit better with 168 in the positive. They averaged 24 points a game, which was 649 in total, which was 6th in the competition, and averaged 19 points against with 536 points conceded. 4th with their completion rate of 79%. Handling errors, middle of the road. Penalties conceded was 2nd in the competition, giving away 6.5 penalties a game, which would be something that
Their hooker liked the penalty.
Bellamy wouldn't be real happy about, I would imagine. Errors, they were actually pretty good with the errors in 13th, so there's only 4 or 5 teams better than them with errors made. Kick meters for mine was one that they probably struggled with a bit this year, 10th in kick meters, so they probably need to find another option with their kicking or improve it somehow.
Well, they just aren't too noted kick meters, and they're a team that's been built off the strength of their forward pack for so long.
And they're pretty happy to have a crack out of their own end rather than kick it as well.
Yeah, but also, just, when you have years of the toughness of the Bromwiches and Kafusi and these sort of blokes, to then come out and, Munster, both Munster and Hughes are capable of 40-20s and the like, but they're not noted, I can't think of them having very special boots.
4th in missed tackles, so another consistency area that Bellamy would probably be fuming at, I would imagine, because they're definitely not known for that kind of thing. Line break assists 13th, which is bottom 4 territory for line break assists, which is not something. Another one that you do not expect to come out of the Melbourne Storm. But try assists, they were 8th, so middle of the road for tries, middle of the road for pretty much a lot of other things apart from dummy half runs, which was obviously Harry Grant loves a scoot from dummy half. He was 2nd with dummy half runs. 1st with decoys. 53 decoys.
How do we even measure that?
Came out from somewhere, but obviously blokes running through the line on the outside and not getting the ball, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But that's it was an interesting one. Meany was 2nd in points scored, 222. So obviously a lot of that comes from goals, but had a pretty good year as well. Warbrick, by the end of the year, ended up 14th for tries scored 17 tries, which is obviously not a bad effort considering he couldn't score a try for what was looked about 8 or 10 weeks.
Yeah,
I don't think
it took a long time because we all had him in our super coach and we all flicked him.
Again, he led their line breaks. There's so much stuff here that was middle of the road. Nelson Asofa Solomona was 2nd in tackle busts, which is pretty expected from that guy because he normally leaves someone behind him every time he touches the ball. Jerome Hughes, try assist, was 7th with 21, and I thought he was by far their best player. I know Harry Grant was up there on Daly M's, but for mine, I think Jerome Hughes was more instrumental to this team than anybody else. Grant was 1st with tackles, made 1,065 tackles, 4th on average, which is, you expected out of him, but there wasn't a great deal else that came out of these guys. Penalties conceded, Munster was 3rd on the list, so good at giving away a penalty. He had a...
well, he was equal with Harry Grant.
Yes, and Harry Grant. He had a pretty ordinary year, I thought, from Munster standards. There was a couple of games that he killed, but...
Here's the thing. Well, no, the stats, you really...
Not particularly. No, there wasn't a lot. There was pretty much middle of the road for most of everything the Storm did this year.
I think this year's Storm performance can be contributed to just the quality of their top 3 players. And I'm going to include Munster for now because there were early on, those 2 or 3 games he won by himself.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
He was taking a piss in a couple of them. But they never, ever clicked as one. I can't think of a game. There was a game where Hughes and Grant had... but they put on 700 against someone.
6 or 7 tries in the space of half an hour or whatever
the Tigers. Who was it? It was someone. Anyway, as I bring it up, but Harry had some phenomenal games, and I don't want to say he had a below par for, and we grade Munster on a curve, and we grade Harry Grant on a curve because they are the best players.
They
in
were
the game.
down a level from what they produced.
They didn't come across at all as a team like that, and their spine when they were at full strength. I can't think of a game where it clicked. I would say from a consistency point of view, Nick Meaney was the most consistent of their spine because he. I would say he's a level ahead of a good, solid tradesman because he adds a lot more, but he was the same player every week.
Yes.
You knew what you got. Didn't drop, doesn't drop balls, doesn't make mistakes. Interesting comparison with him and his stats against someone like a Chance, actually, now I think of this. But when you look at what the rest of the team brings, apart from, I guess, their wingers, Olam played himself out of form and favour.
Yep.
It is... You can't be lucky enough to finish third, but I think it's an outstanding effort from Bellamy to get them into third spot.
Oh, the way that they were able to scrape through a couple of games and just provide just enough quality to get them home at the back end of the games probably does stand out a lot more towards the coaching than anything else. Post contact meters was a big one. 37th was the highest player that they had, so it just tells you that their forward pack wasn't really
Nelson?
getting them on the front foot. No, it was actually Josh King.
Okay.
With with 983, but just tells you that they weren't really bending the line as much as there was only sort of one or two guys in that forward pack that were really having much of an impact through the middle of the field, and that's where they did struggle a lot.
And they got, especially early on in the season, they got completely owned. How many games at the start of the year did they win? And I guess this is actually credit back to them. We were like, in a few weeks when they see them against so and so, they're in a world of trouble, or so-and-so in a world of trouble. But they'll come out and they'll do the same thing and scrape home, or Harry would produce a miracle 20 minutes.
Someone would blow someone off the park, which is completely unexpected.
Or Jerome Hughes would, produce something special. But I don't know, it's a weird one to wrap up, and I think it's a hard one because we haven't really said a lot here, but I don't know what else to say. Anyone particularly you want to touch on outside who we mentioned? Warbrick, by the end of the year, it's his first year as a rookie. He's a rookie. He was eligible for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, well, the standouts for mine were...
it will be something special.
Alessi Katoa was a standout for a big part of the year. He had a bit of a flat spot, sort of 3/4 of the way through the year.
His eye got popped out or whatever.
But he was definitely a standout for them. Hughes, Nelson, and Meaney were the four guys that really stood out for mine in this Storm team. There's still got some very good positives in the team, though. Obviously, you're throwing Munster in there.
Didn't really touch on Nelson enough, but Nelson's had almost his best year in that he had to do this solo this year.
Yep.
It's easy to be a bully in a great forward pack, but
100%.
He came on and changed games as recently as the final a few weeks ago. But he'd come on and change games himself just by being on the field, even late in this season. And with his size, moving on to an edge was fantastic for him because he got to bully some smaller people. But given he...
We would have liked to have seen a few more minutes out of him, but he's not that sort of player, is he? He's more of that impact type forward. Trent Liero, I thought, had a very good year. He's a positive for this team going forward.
He will be heaps better next year because I think this was he went from a bench player to a proper player, and next year will be... He'll be one of those that have to drag him out of where they come because I don't think anyone coming next year.
Munster needs to jump out of the positive area back into being a standout. Warbrick and Coates, I thought, were very good on both the wingers when they were on the field. And Welch had a pretty decent season. Took him a little while to warm up, but by the back end of the year, he was leading that forward pack.
Going to be hard to play proper in a pack like this.
And Josh King did plenty of work. Not a huge impact, but he's definitely a positive going forward. Someone that they can get a couple of workers around with him and stiffen up that middle of the field for him a little bit.
He's a funny one, Josh King, because I was thinking about him today because we were raving about him last year and he produced the great Supercoach stats and got through the mountain of work. And he sort of did the same this year, but there's actually not many clubs, I think, that would go and buy him. Do you mean?
Probably not.
If he was trying to command
not as a starting,
starter, really, which is a funny thing. But that's not really knocking him because he's did a great job and he's a workhorse. But there's a glut of them. There's just a glut of them. Like
there seems to be more and more of them every year recently.
Like, even he went through the bottom four, maybe the Dragons, but they've got DeBell in there, and a couple of those younger blokes, your Madisons of the world. Bulldogs, no. Tigers, no. Titans, no. Like, you mean? Like, he doesn't really fit anywhere else. So, and I think he's got an extension anyway, so it's sort of a moot point, and well deserved. But it's funny how sometimes these workhorses just exist.
Question marks around Pappenhausen, obviously. Hopefully he comes back from another injury and comes back into the form that we know and love, because he'll be a massive positive for him if he does. But obviously there's got to be question marks around there. The whole bench for mine, there was question marks around. Tarek Sims, Eisenhuth, Wishart, Garrick, Garlick. Garlick had a couple of very good games and does look like he can be a positive, but
it's hard to be. It's hard. Like, most games are going to the games with 3 or 4 hookers. Like, it's hard for it to be. What are they supposed to do?
That's what I mean. Yeah, what do they do with him? Do they use him as a backup hooker? Are they going to try and make him bigger and get him into the back row? Use him keep him as that utility. Forward depth is something that they need to fix up going forward. And Kamika for mine. He's such a funny player.
Well, he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be that guy.
He can have the best game you've ever seen and then not appear on the stat sheet for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's just a weird one. And then he'll come back and trample people. It's just,
I imagine they're going to raid. I think there is some chat that they're going to go and chase someone like a Moga from St George or some of those sort of ilks that are big bodies, but you sort of, and you go, okay, you can see them picking them up for 200 and Bellamy getting really
molds them into the team,
really juicing the lemon. But and their edges were like a Seve, Tonanapea.
Yeah, well, Olam and Seve in there as question marks as well.
I think their Christmas wish list, if they were going to write a Santa, would be at least a strike centre.
Yep.
I think it would be for Ryan Pappenhausen to be fit.
100%.
And would be for
a couple of front rowers.
Tom Hazelton, or even like a Bunty, or and they'll do well enough. They'll find someone. Alex Twal would have been I'd love an Alex Twal style. He'd be someone I'd love to see him go there and have a successful year. But the other one to go up the sleeve is Faye Longo.
Yes.
Who looked incredible and looks like could be a superstar. So where he fits in to it all, all of a sudden if you've got that 14, are you trying to use him? Are you trying to, where does Meaney go? Does Meaney go back to, Meaney might end up back in the centres, or Meaney ends up on a wing. Warbrick probably big enough to play centre.
I'm not sure if Pappenhausen comes back, I'm not sure if Meaney holds his spot.
Well, this is the thing. So where does he go? Faye Longo's going to bring more off a bench.
I'd probably be looking at pushing him into the wing, and then
someone end up on a wing,
like Warbrick into the centres, as you mentioned. But
Coates doesn't come across as centre. I think if Warbrick had a pre-season at centre, he looks like a centre.
Defence is a little bit questionable.
Well, that's he's not lateral. He doesn't come across a lateral mover, but he can jump, as can Coates. I think he'll do a better job than Coates in the centres. I mean, he plays either side. You got to give Olam benefit of the doubt. He can come good. And
100%.
Yeah, Faye Longo's got to be in there somewhere. But if it's I would be having him at 14 instead of
maybe
Wishart or Garlic. But
the pace and footwork's fucking electric, wasn't it?
And that's
when you have 2 games
to
and
use
both
a cliche,
times
you can't coach that. You can't.
Both times.
Doesn't matter how much time you spend on something, you can't coach that.
Yeah.
So.
May have only been 3 or 4 impacts, but they were massive impacts.
Yeah.
The way he just left people standing still, clutching thin air when he ran past them.
Harry Grant playing off the bench. Do you reckon this is now going to just be the rest of his career, or is he?
I don't think
he can afford
change. I think he was holding a few niggles during the year, to be honest.
And another one that's come off as I said, how much World Cup?
Same with Munster. I think Munster was
unfortunately about to go and have another lot of it all, but
Munster's no, they're not playing the World Cup, are they?
No, the Five Nations.
I don't think that. I think a lot of players.
In 3 weeks.
I think a lot of players won't be playing a lot of huge game time in those things as well. I think you'll be seeing a bit of a rotation through especially the Australian and New Zealand teams where they're just swapping players on and off. But I think Munster may have been carrying an injury for a big part of the year as well. So there was a few games where he just didn't look right the way he was running around the field. But
interesting one. Do they? They have to decline at some point, don't they?
We've been saying it for 10 years, though.
Yeah, we like
20 years.
Bold predictions coming, but surely there's a tipping point. They are too injured. If Harry Grant does, and Touchwood, don't wish this on anyone, if Grant and Hughes do Achilles next year or ACLs, we won't see him in the finals.
Fall off a cliff. Yeah,
won't see him in the finals. But anything else on the Storm?
No, I think they probably as you mentioned, did overachieve. Just the grit and toughness got them through a few games that they probably, or most of the other teams in the comp did lose, which ended up pushing them outside the 8 or down the bottom of the 8. So, it's going to be interesting. I really think they need a reshuffle. I think they need to bring probably 4 or 5 players into this squad to really
and if offloaded
continue
a few.
where
I
they are.
I think Eisenhuth's gone. I think there's a few others. If they have got rid of today, there's 4 or 5 they got rid of today.
Yeah, okay.
Like the bottom end of their top 30.
Yeah.
Very interesting silly season come up in about 3 weeks' time. There's going to be some big changes.
Musical chairs.
More than people think, I think. Like, I feel like it's going to be more than... We said this last year and it didn't really happen. Yeah. I think this will be game on for a few clubs.
Well, there's a few teams that went crazy last year and they'll probably they're still trying to catch up, so they'll probably go pretty hard into the market as well.
That's
and
right.
There's a few teams like Cronulla and Parramatta who didn't, that probably really need to go and do it this year. So I dare say you will be seeing quite a few blokes swapping clubs in 3 months' time from now. But
yep, 3 weeks' time from now, which is exciting. Something. Just means you'll have to do like a summer show at some point, but